And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into the Status Network, the live TV channel. This is Conversation Corner with your host, the author Andrew Snorton. And as we do every second and fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're ready to have a great conversation with great people doing some outstanding things across entertainment, business, community, and more. Tonight is not only an installment of our HerStory series, but it's right on time as we know March is Women's History Month. So before we get into our first guest, we're going to take care of a brief station announcement and ways for you to stay engaged with your host. So with the Status Network, we appreciate everybody tuning into tonight's show, as well as tuning in and supporting the entire Status Network family of television shows, podcasts, radio, you name it, we do it here. To best enjoy tonight's show, please make sure to visit the website statusnetwork.net. The big pop-up box, click on Conversation Corner for your updates and you're good to go. On the smartphone app Status Network, click on Channels, click on LYVE Live TV, and you're good to go. On your social media platforms, including but not limited to Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and others, make sure to add Status Network as well as LYVE Live TV. And don't forget, if you're on Roku or Amazon Fire Stick, you can tune in the Status Network and you'll be seeing us. So those are the ways to stay connected and engaged. And a couple of real quick things before we get to our first guest. And if you or someone you know has an interest and a passion, whether it's broadcasting, podcasting, you name it, we do it here. As you can see in the very bottom, we've got 5 television platforms and radio, and we're not going to leave you out here by yourself. You get top-notch training so you can do your show as solidly as possible. So shouts to everybody here at Status Network. And a quick reminder to stay connected with me. As you see in the upper left-hand corner, yes, there are 3 published books. There's more stuff that we'll talk about later, but to stay connected with me, make sure to pick up a copy of any of the books I've written. They're available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple for ebook. Make sure to check out the hashtags. And yes, you can click on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and make your purchase. And on the lower right-hand corner, make sure to stay connected with me via the websites, social media, and of course, if you email me, I will make sure to respond as promptly as possible. So there you have it for some ways to stay connected and engaged. I think we've got one more quick item, and this is just a quick reminder. Shouts to all on the book end. Remember, I am an author, so I definitely want to make sure to give shouts to all the bookstores supporting all the book clubs and more. Make sure to check out Black Writers Workspace, as I was a recent guest on their series. Check out Detroit Book City for their current campaign, as I'm one of the featured authors through their campaign running through the end of the month, and shouts to Phoenix Blue Inc. for their recent feature on me. So there you have it, and now we're getting ready to go into our first guest. She is actually making a return visit as she was visiting with us during the campaign cycle, the election cycle. So we're so excited to have with us Ms. Shelly Washington. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing really well. Thank you for having me again, Andrew. It's always a pleasure to see you and to do anything that you're doing. This is great.
I tell you what, hey, turnabout is fair play. Thank you so very much for working us into your schedule. Now, before we talk about some of the current moving parts or areas of concern for where you're based out of, for Rockdale County, Georgia, on the board of the county commissioners, give our viewers a little bit of a background, where you're from, and a few of your other moving parts outside of serving as one of the commissioners.
Sure. I was born in Chicago, but we moved to Haddock, Georgia when I was about 7 years old, 7 or 8. And I grew up in a very rural setting in middle Georgia. Haddock is between Macon and Milledgeville. I went to Spelman for 3.5 years. My story is that I conceived a child while I was at Spelman. So I couldn't afford Spelman and the baby, so I kept the baby and ended up transferring to Savannah State, where I received a bachelor's and a master's degree from Savannah State. And one day, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and a good friend of mine told me that I might be getting cuter, but I'm not getting any younger. So she encouraged me to go on to law school. where I did go to law school at Texas Southern University. So I am a practicing attorney. My office is based out of Conyers also, but I tell people that I'll go wherever there's a bat sign and a dollar sign to practice law. So that's pretty much between being a full-time. I have the Washington Law Group. Like I said, it's based out of Conyers. I have a boutique law firm. It's a general practice firm. Outside of that and being a county commissioner, there's not a whole lot time for much else. I do have started playing a little golf, which is what we do to relax now. So that's pretty much me right now.
Well, I tell you what, thank you for sharing your backstory. And of course, thank you for all that you're doing with managing these particular moving parts. Now, here we are, the election cycle, quote, we'll say the election cycle is over. And now that we're in the first quarter of the year, walk through with our viewers, especially your constituents in Rockdale County, what are, we'll say, I know there's always something that's important. What are you seeing? You know how, like, for example, if the president, it's like the first 100 days. What are you seeing right now in the first quarter that really not only is you're really, really focused on, but something that you want your constituents to be much more aware of?
Well, of course, the very first thing is the fact that we are still in a pandemic. And I know that the numbers are leveling out, but that just means that we're starting to get our hands around this monster. I still strongly encourage people to socially distance, wear your masks, do all the things, wash your hands, everything that you're supposed to do. And I think people are getting a lot more comfortable with the pandemic, but we still need to adhere to a lot of safety precautions regarding that. So that's one of my number one priorities. But in Rockdale County, I am focusing heavily on economic development. There are a lot of key initiatives that we're working on, and everything is moving really fast. We're under several non-disclosure agreements so that we can't really announce a lot of the things that are going on. But I think the people in Rockdale County are going to be very, very pleased at some of the economic development initiatives that we're putting together there. Another key initiative is criminal justice reform, i.e. focusing on mental health issues and addiction and substance abuse issues. I'm working with our district attorney and the other county commissioner for Post 2, Doreen Williams, is working heavily on coming up with a initiative where we try not to incarcerate those people that are having mental health episodes. She's working very, very hard with that, and our district attorney is Alicia Johnson is amazing, and she's coming up with a lot of key initiatives for things like that. But also we're working on in Rockdale County our first real substantive pretrial diversion program. Like I said, our district attorney is amazing, and she has 3 Black sons, so she's very concerned about the intersection of law enforcement and criminal justice. So those are a lot of big things that we're working on in Rockdale.
And I'm glad you're sharing that. I think, like you said, number one, even with the numbers starting to level, there's still a little ways to go. So contrary, like some people, like you said, contrary to what people think, you still have to take precautions because you still have to get those numbers down and be in a safer space. And I'm glad that you mentioned, economic development. With the growth that Rockdale County has experienced, could you walk through with our viewers? We know, yes, jobs, businesses are important, but really emphasize to our viewers, given the county's growth, how really essential it is to put that at the forefront.
Well, not just because we're growing, but we want to be able to control that growth. We want to be able to control what areas look like, give design standards for, right now there's a big push to have townhomes instead of single family homes, and that's all over the metro area. Well, we want quality townhomes and not just you coming to Rockdale County and putting anything up and us having to deal with small streets and parking, cars all in the roadway where emergency vehicles can't get through. So we're trying to put design standards around things like that. Like I said, controlling where things are, and really moving to recruit the kinds of even retail that we want. It's not just economic development, it's also community development. So we're at a juncture where we are trying to recreate Rockdale County for the 21st century.
Again, that's amazing. And like you said, being innovative and really, like you said, thinking steps ahead so that things you put in place are going to help, like you said, with that intersection of the economy, I'll say the economic development, and definitely the larger community. What are a couple other, and before I go into that, and I'm glad you mentioned what you were talking about in regards to, we'll say law enforcement, but especially being more aware, more cognizant of approaches and alternative means with people who are living with a mental health issue or something along those lines. Do you think that in conjunction with that, or part of that piece, it's also strengthening, let's say, access to social services, resources, things along those lines?
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that we are pushing, having that access readily available so that if somebody is going through a mental health crisis, you don't have to search for it. It should be, there should be, and one of our goals, let's say, one of our goals with this is to have it so that we have a call line like 911 or 511, something where we can call, you can call for mental health emergencies, so that it's not necessarily calling 911, because once you bring law enforcement out, that becomes something totally different. The other thing is training law enforcement. Our sheriff, Eric Levitt, is very conscious of the fact that law enforcement needs to be trained on how to deal with mental health issues, so that we're not just incarcerating the mentally ill when they're having episodes.
Again, that is outstanding, because part of it is, training and awareness, education, what to do, how to do. And sometimes there's some things that fall outside of somebody's scope. So like you're saying, by having those resources readily available, or definitely making strides to where it's readily available, it is providing, like you said, just, for lack of a term, just a better fit, just something that flows a lot better,
Absolutely. And I think now we're more aware of different things, and somebody who is mentally ill or going through an episode, it doesn't have the stigma that it used to have. So I think that we're being more educated, better educated, and we're able to provide better services because of that education.
Again, and I'm glad that you're sharing that and sharing what you can in regards to the direction you're trying to move in, making sure, like we said before, resources are a little bit more plentiful. They're definitely much more readily available, things along those lines. Let me ask you this question. So it's great that you're talking about the moving parts and the work you're doing. For people who are residents, whether it's in your zone or district or within the county, what are some things that you would suggest to Rockdale County residents just to stay more aware or to stay more engaged? What are things that, quote, people who live there, what are things that / we or they can do in order to be a more proactive part of the process?
Well, one of the things, I say two things. With Rockdale County, our Board of Commissioners, we televise all of our meetings, and then they replay them over and over and over again. Catch up. you can even go to Venmo and get our past meetings, or on our website, there are past meetings. So find out what we're doing, because I'm very transparent when I'm sitting on the dais. What comes up comes out pretty much with me. So you always know what I'm doing and what's going on in the county. But the other thing is, pick your issue. If you are concerned about economic development and the direction that we're going, come talk to me or any of the other commissioners. Serve on the board. Come to the most people don't know that a lot of our economic development is going through a development authority. We might have 50 people at a board of commissioner meetings, but nobody at a development authority meeting, where we're planning a lot of the initiatives and things like that. So we're doing a strategic plan for our animal control center. There were several community members that were engaged with that. Just pick your issue and become involved. And you don't have to be involved with everything, but if there's something that holds true to you or rings true to you, then become involved with that issue. We have a Parks and Rec committee. Join that committee. Help plan our next recreation facility. Things like that. There's always something that you can do. Keeping your community beautiful. There's that commission. There's so many ways that you can get involved, and you don't have to do everything, but just pick one thing and be an advocate for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So a couple of quick things. Remind viewers, and especially, obviously, we want to make sure Rockdale County residents are fully aware. Remind viewers in regards to the public meetings, things along those lines. Where can they go, like you said, whether it's Venmo, what website or things can they go to get caught up and get more aware?
Right. So our work sessions are the first and third Tuesday of the month. That's where we talk about issues, but we don't vote on them. So we televise at 10 o'clock in the morning on the first and third, on the first Tuesday of the month. The third Tuesday of the month, we televise at 7 o'clock in the evening. And that's so that residents that are working and may have issues, they can join us in the evening for those work sessions. Now we have our voting sessions on the second and the fourth Tuesday of the month, and those are always at 10 o'clock in the morning. As the Board of Commission, we vote on all planning projects. Those are on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 9 o'clock in the morning. Those are also televised. You can go to rockdalecounty.gov, our website. I'm not sure what our Venmo address is, but I'm sure if you put Rockdale County into Venmo, then you can find it. And we have a YouTube channel, same thing. But just those are the best ways to keep up with what we're doing in the county.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate how you're handling all these moving parts, taking your public service to the next level. As we get ready to wind down your segment, and especially for Rockdale County residents, what are the best ways for them to engage and connect with you?
Everybody, it seems like, always connects with me on Facebook. So Sherry L. Washington on Facebook, on Twitter, Sherry L. Washington, Commissioner Sherry Washington on Instagram. Or you know what, I give out my phone number, which is 770-882-7198. That is my personal phone number. People call me or text me on my personal number also. So that's it.
Well, I tell you what, it is a pleasure to speak with you again. Thank you so much for making the time to come back and provide updates for the great things that are taking place in Rockdale County. Continued well wishes with all that you're working on.
Well, thank you so much. And anytime, Andrew, this is always a great space to be in, and it's always great to inform the people, but it's always great to talk to you also.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And like I said, continued well wishes. Uh, Keep up the great work that you are doing. So, what we're going to do at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our first commercial break, and we come back. We're bringing on our second guest who is doing some outstanding work in Gwinnett County, Georgia. So, this is the Conversation Corner, and we'll be right back. Hey there, everyone. Make sure to check out my most recent and upcoming interviews on shoutoutatlanta.com, The V Report, and on March 16th at the Rich Living Morning Show. So make sure to check out their websites, Spotify, SoundCloud, you name it. Tune in and learn more about your favorite author. As a reminder, you may get my books on Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon, and make sure to check out my info in the lower right-hand corner so that way you can find out about all the great bookstores that are carrying all three books. So go deep, keep the faith, and get into the game and get your copy for you or your favorite reader's library. The Author's Mixtape audiobook series is music, spoken word, all freestyle, nothing pre-written. You may download all 4 volumes on your favorite platforms that you see in the lower left-hand corner. And make sure to check out Volume 4, the collab, as we introduce Chris 10 to bless the mic and the audiobook series. Get your merch from your favorite author. That's right, we have bracelets and mugs that you may get individually or pair them with a book or two. We will release new merch in the upcoming weeks, so make sure to email me for details and make sure to add me on the social media platforms that you see here and follow the hashtag as well. Baseball, 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 HBCU style, awesome action, and we're excited that we'll do book signings in partnership with these great classics. So join me March 22nd in Jacksonville and join me in Frisco, Texas later that weekend. HBCU baseball style. And we are back for our second segment of the Conversation Corner. And again, we have some great people doing some great things. Our next guest is doing some outstanding work in Gwinnett County, Georgia, as the district attorney. So we're so excited to have, I'll say, Attorney Esquire. Just want to make sure I have it correct. Ms. Pasty Austin-Gatson. How are you doing this evening?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Hey, and just like with everyone, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Before you talk about a few of the moving parts that you're working on as district attorney, could you give our viewers a little bit of your background through the professional lens, as well as maybe a couple of community things that you're involved in?
Okay. I have lived in Gwinnett County now for 23 years. This is after attending Emory University for my JD. And I've worked with the Attorney General's office for the state of Georgia and also had my own practice for many years doing criminal and civil matters. And recently, prior to being elected the district attorney, I worked for a Gwinnett County Solicitor's Office. And one of the major things that I did there was to work on a records restriction. And that was important to me because you have a lot of people that have minor infractions sometimes on their record, which prevents them from getting housing and jobs and things of that nature that really impedes them from being fully functioning in our society. So that's me in a nutshell. I have 3 children and 2 grands and 2 on the way, so I'm pretty happy right now.
Well, definitely congratulations with the upcoming additions to the family and everything. And just in walking through your professional background, many, many thanks for the work you've done leading to this point. Walk through with our viewers some of the roles and responsibilities that your office as district attorney, what it entails.
Mm-hmm. Well, our office prosecutes the felony crimes that happen within our jurisdiction. We also are responsible for juvenile court here in Gwinnett County. from my perspective, it is really to work with the community.
Okay. So again, and that's great because some people, it's one of those just being aware and not you hear of a position, but you don't know exactly what they do. Now, walking through, like you're saying, in regards to the prosecution of certain cases, as well as in the juvenile court system, I know one of your key areas, and you kind of indirectly mentioned it earlier, was looking at what can be done to reduce recidivism rates. Can you walk through with our viewers, especially those residents of Gwinnett County, what are some of the things that you're looking at putting in place so that way it's making that more of a reality?
Well, as far as recidivism is concerned, we can look at making sure that when people, prior to them coming out of the system, there are certain programs that they can be involved in that prepares them to come out and be productive citizens. And that means having a job skill. Our Department of Corrections has a program, and I think because of COVID and funding, it's been tapped down a bit when we really need to be ramping it up. But it would teach welding skills, and I think they wanted to get a mechanics part of that going. So basically what you're looking at is when people are released, that they have something productive to do so that they're not led right back into the situation that may have gotten them into the system. So what we're doing is working with those different parts of the system that folks can take advantage of, job training and things of that nature. And it's really very important that that happen because we have to break the cycle. And that's what, we don't want people constantly going in and out of the system. We want folks to come out and not go back because that just tears up families too much. As a society, we have to do better. We have to do better with that.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And speaking on that piece of being proactive, like you said, with job training and things along those lines, what role can the business community play in helping strengthen these types of programs? So like you said, if there's more that's done before people are released, now they're better equipped to better transition back into society.
Okay. Well, I think business can try not to penalize people because there is a record. And I know that sometimes takes a leap of faith and trust in who that individual is. But, I believe that anybody can make a mistake, but let's not penalize them for the rest of their lives. If they've gone through the system, they've paid their debt to society, then they need to come out and be able to be wage earners for their family, to be productive, and for us not to imprison them again in a situation where they can't find jobs. So those are things that we have to work on as far as our society is concerned, where we're just immediately, categorizing people in that way. And we need to work harder so that they can get out and get jobs. And the, private business, that's where it's all at. Don't be afraid to give someone a job just because there was a blemish on their record.
And thank you for sharing that because, to varying degrees, all of us have made mistakes. All of us have done something that we probably had no business doing, whether going way back in the day when you were supposed to leave dessert alone, and I might be telling on myself, and tried to do dessert at a different time, and you'd get that switch or something reminder being like, this is not the time or place. So we've I'm glad that you stressed that, especially like you said, if people have already paid their debts to society, if they've already served their time, then give them an opportunity to see what they are capable of doing. And I'm sure a lot of that mindset translates down to, like you said, your office is in charge of the juvenile court system, in charge of the juvenile system. Walk through with our viewers, what are some things that you're putting in place that kind of parallel, what's going on that criminal end in regards to what things can be done proactively to where people aren't always jumping back and forth within the system?
As far as juveniles are concerned, I really, really want to start early, working with the school system to encourage kids to be about realizing their dreams and their passions and not getting into the system in the first place. That's one of the things I want to look at. And kids that are there, what I'm working on now is doing programs where they can be, teamed with mentors, and there's programming where they can do more things as far as knowing who they are and not being into the criminal justice system. We're working on a few things right now where we can have programming for them. And I've also talked to a juvenile court judge, and what we're also trying to work on is possibly a program for kids that they can do, little jobs as far as tutoring other children that are younger than them and getting a little pay for that so that they have something that they can hold their head up and be confident. And also, I have always asked our community to make sure that they speak with children, let them know that they're important for our community because that is our future. And they have to know that this community cares about them, that this community loves them, and we want to see them do well.
And building upon that, let me ask you this question in regards to, like you said, being proactive with investment with young people. What roles can segments of the community, well, technically anybody, but what comes to mind, what segments of our nonprofit community, alumni associations, our fraternal organizations, sororities, things along those lines, what things can they do to really, for lack of a term, help supplement the work that you're trying to do to help our juvenile audience?
Well, I think it's important that there be, there's many opportunities to volunteer. It's like when I was on my campaign trail, I told my constituents that it's not merely about the elected official. It's also about what we all do, because all of us can do something. You can read to a child. You can be a mentor. Show interest. Get involved in your community, because we cannot make it unless we're all working together. And we've all heard the term, it takes a village. And it really does take a village, because we have to show interest in our community, and we all have a responsibility to do that.
And there you have it in regards to, like you said, just heeding the call. So here you've got the moving parts within, like you said, on the criminal end, the moving parts on the juvenile end. What would you say, and I know there's always, everything has its own set of challenges or rivers to cross or hurdles to clear. What would you say is one thing that you've seen that may have caught you off guard or may have caught you by surprise?
Well, haven't been in office yet very long, but I think one thing that hit me really hard is just the seriousness of this. When you have to think about whether someone is going to have a very severe sentence, state action like the death penalty, things like that, that hit you really hard, because it's really important that the weight of this office, people understand what that is all about. Because you really don't want to be in a position where folks are being subjected to that. This book, and it said that and it really hit me hard. He said that justice and funerals are for the living. And that really hit me really hard because that's what it is about. When you think about justice and a homicide, you know, those people, the victim technically is gone, but then you have the family members and you have the community that's looking for justice. And that is it's a heavy burden, but that's what my job is about, is making sure that we have justice in this community.
Okay. And by the same token, given where you are right now, what would you say has been one of the more, I guess for lack of a better term, pleasant or positive or productive things that kind of helps keep you going to continue to move forward and continue to move further?
Well, it's like I tell people, I really come alive when I'm trying to plan programming that will help our community. When I'm looking at things that will allow people to have a second chance, like our pretrial intervention diversion programs, those are the things that really make me excited, because that's the policy that can be made that will really help the community, that will really help push people forward and excel them. So that is really an exciting part of the position, is trying to get the right programming in there. And it's going to take a little bit of time just to get it in there so that it becomes solid and people know what to expect when they come into the court system.
Wow, and that is very, when you explain that, that is very, it's very telling, like you said before, when you're thinking about, when you're identifying these areas of concern, when you're identifying what's going on with these different demographics, looking at making positive steps to put things in place, to be proactive, to help reduce, you know, for lack of a better term, some of the challenges that are going on. But another thing, and it harkens back to what you said earlier, yes, this is what comes with the territory, but by the same token, the community can get involved, the community can stay engaged, the community can have these conversations and seeing, hey, look, based on what's going on, what policy, what procedure, what resources can we put to better address these? So as we get ready to wind down, let me ask you this. For anyone out there that is thinking about walking in a similar path, and I know you have, you know, wealth of wisdom, insight, what's one takeaway you'd want for someone to have who's thinking, I want to be where you are?
Well, I would just advise them, you have to follow your heart and your passion. And first you have to discover what that is. And sometimes you just have to spend a little bit of time with yourself and ask yourself those questions. What is it that I want to do? What is my purpose? And I feel that if folks take the time to do that, they'll be led in the right direction. I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. But I used to ask people sometimes, why did they want to go into law? And I always thought the wrong answer is for money. Because I think if you're doing your passion, you're doing what you want to do, that will come eventually. But that should not really be your motivating factor, because we need people in law that care and that have that as, you know, a motivating factor, is that you want to help people. So I kind of look at it like that.
Wow, that is some great insight and great advice. So before we go to commercial, what are the best ways that our viewers, especially your constituents in Gwinnett County, can stay connected and engaged with the work that you're doing?
Okay. Well, I think they have no problem finding me. I'm getting tons of emails and calls. So if they would just email me or call my office, I will definitely get the message. Okay.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here. We appreciate the work that you are already doing, and we're excited of the work that has yet to be done. And like you said, you made the call that the community can be a part of it. We wish you continued success, blessings, congratulations. And what we're going to do at this point, we're going to go to our commercial break. And we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we have another amazing guest doing some amazing work on the state level. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. If you or someone you know has done any type of short film, long film, or documentary, make sure to have them connect with us here at Status Network at Status Films, where independents grow. We want to make sure your film and related work gets the exposure it needs on our platforms and more, so make sure to connect with us today. All About the Authors is the Authors Roundtable series co-hosted by celebrity source Tyra Satai and yours truly, the author Andrew Snorton. Guest authors Beth K. Dawkins and Kristen Kinder will join us this Sunday, March 14th, so make sure to connect with us and connect with them to check out the great literary work that they are doing. So again, check it out. Photography, video, short film, documentaries, commercials. Do you get the picture? If so, make sure to connect with Chris 10 Media on Instagram as well as Facebook to see all of their work and have them work with you for your video and commercial needs. Check them out. What happens when you combine the presence of I Am Sherelle Anderson with 1820 hats? You have something truly amazing. That's right. The Amazing Culture is the signature line featuring Anderson, only available at 1820hats.com. Connect with 1820 Hats and remember to live free.
Rise and shine. Time to get on the grind. What's on your mind? Is it how the time rewinds when you are flowing in your purpose, but it's worth it? Alright, now snap out of it. Get up, get up, get up, get up, make it happen. You relaxing and time is passing you by. Time flies. Have you ever seen your idea floating across the TV screen only to realize it wasn't you? I mean, it was your idea, but you sat on it because you thought you...
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our third segment and our third guest on tonight's show. And I tell you what, we've already had two amazing guests, and we're about to go ahead and add our third amazing guest who is doing some major work within the state of Georgia in the legislature. So we're so excited to have Georgia District 107 Representative Shelly Hutchinson. Ms. Hutchinson, how are you doing this evening?
I am tired. How are you?
I am doing all right, and I'm hoping, we know, like the old school saying, the street lights are coming on, so we're just going to keep you on long enough. But
just long enough.
Just long enough. We thank you for taking time during legislative session to join us. Before you talk about a few of the key moving parts that are going on, walk through with our viewers again the district that you represent and a couple of your other moving parts outside of serving under the Gold Dome.
So I represent a part of Gwinnett County, and keep in mind, we probably have maybe 15 representatives for Gwinnett County. Where Gwinnett is coming up on 1 million. We're like 950,000 residents. So we have a ton of representatives. I represent the area, if anyone's familiar with Gwinnett County, around Brookwood High School. It's the big intersection would be Highway 78 and Scenic Highway. That's kind of where my area starts, and it goes towards downtown Lawrenceville. Outside of the legislature, I am a clinical social worker. I have a practice that does mental health outreach in Gwinnett. We start in Gwinnett, and we serve from Gwinnett all the way northeast, almost to South Carolina at this point. We're adding more rural areas to our service map. And we do everything from psychiatry to skills-based skills, teaching skills like social skills, anger management skills, things like that. That's the lowest level, all the way up to psychiatry, and everything is outpatient. So I've been doing that since 2002. I've lived in Gwinnett County since '93. I am married. In fact, this year will make our 25th wedding anniversary. I have 2 kids. One will be 21 in April. The other one will be 18 March 21st. And interestingly enough, my daughter goes to school in Scotland. She goes to school in Scotland because it was cheaper, much cheaper, to send her to Scotland than it would have been to send her to UGA. So my son is going to follow her footsteps, not in the same university, but he is going to go to a university outside of London.
Wow. A lot of moving parts. First off, congratulations on 25 years and more to come, and continued, well wishes with what you're doing, and especially because you're providing access to resources and services for people in need. But like you said before, even digging deeper into those rural areas where there sometimes can be some huge disconnects. So here you are with these moving parts, and now here it is serving the people on one of the highest levels within the state of Georgia. Walk us through a little bit of how did that happen?
Sometimes I'm still asking myself the same thing. So when I woke up in November of 2016 and Trump was president-elect, I thought I had to do some real soul searching. I always thought that I paid attention and I always voted. I donated to campaigns. I went to events during the Obama administration. So I thought I was an active person. At the time, I was teaching adjunct at UGA in the School of Social Work. And I was telling my students were all nervous about whether or not Trump would be elected. And I told them, I don't think there's enough people in the United States to endorse that man. I just don't believe it. So when I woke up in November of 2016, and sure enough, there were enough people in this country to say, grabbing women's genitals is A-okay with me, I had to do some soul searching. So I looked into the person who was representing me and representing our area. And he had represented us for 16 years. I'd never seen him. No one knew who he was. No one ever saw him at an event, nothing. So I said, at least I can give him some competition. So that's what I did. I'm just going to give him some competition because I knew my district voted for Hillary in the 2016 election by double digits. So this person who was representing us was extremely conservative and in fact had won ALEC Lawmaker of the Year one year, which doesn't really match with a district that voted for Hillary in double digits. So I said, okay, I'm going to give him some competition. I did. And as soon as I signed up, he retired. He did get his neighbor to run against me, but we worked really, really hard. And we came out almost 18 percentage points ahead. So that was a decisive victory. And this past year, 2020, another neighbor of his ran against me, and we won by over 20 percentage points. So I think that this district is not leaning in the conservative direction right now.
And I'll tell you what, and congratulations on, both wins, but it's also letting and letting people know that the platform that you have and the work that you're doing, people see the value, people see the relevance, and people see the importance. Which brings me to what is going on right now. And there might be some people who don't know, but there's actually a legislative session going on No, seriously, there might be some people that don't know, which is why
Yeah.
we're having these conversations. So we know one of the hot topics of the current legislative session are some of these bills regarding voting access. Walk through with our viewers who might not know, the process of where it started. This is where it started. This is where we are. And these are things that need to be done, or there might be some drastic changes going on.
So this started with Trump saying that the election was stolen from him, and he created all this doubt in some voters. The voters whose candidate did not win had to find a reason why that happened. So they listened to all of the craziness that he was spewing, even though the governor and the Secretary of State, who are both hardcore Republicans, said that the vote was valid. It was counted and recounted and audited, and that our election was in Georgia, one of elections in the country. So out of that, so keep in mind, the disconnect here is we as Georgians voted for a president. We voted for a Democratic president. We sent 2 Democratic senators to the Senate. But at the Capitol, it's the governor, the Senate, and the House are all controlled by Republicans. And we can have a longer conversation at another time about why that is. It has to do with gerrymandering, and it could possibly happen again because we have to redraw our voting maps this year because the census just came out. So we are in the minority at the Capitol. So basically, Republicans run roughshod. They have, they say privately, I know that our voting system is safe, but my base wants me to do something. And that's why we're seeing all of these voter suppression bills, because that's what they are. They're there to suppress the vote. And there are Republicans that have said out loud, if Democrats continue to vote the way they do, we'll never win again. In Gwinnett County, the chair of our Board of Elections said out loud, and this is the chair of the Board of Elections in Gwinnett County, if something doesn't change, we will never win, talking about being a Republican. So these changes are not because we have a broken system. These changes are because that's the way they're going to keep power. That's the only way they can keep power. Ever since Stacey Abrams did a phenomenal job turning out the vote. And she's done it since she ran in 2018. Now she has an amazing machine in fair fight. She has turned out the vote. We have talked about voting more since Stacey Abrams has been running for in elections than we ever have in history. And that has to continue, because the bottom line is, the truth is, these suppressive bills are going to pass because we don't have the numbers to stop it. They will pass. You can protest, you can call, and I can tell you, none of that is going to change their minds, because we're talking about money and power. So protesters don't change the minds of people who feel like they're losing their power. And if they're losing their power, they're, by extension, losing control over their finances. So this is going to happen. But the good news is it's likely not going to pass in the court system. It's likely going to be deemed unconstitutional. And at the federal level, there's the John Lewis Voting Act that he started before he died. And if that's passed, that can help us in Georgia to defeat some of these bills. But the bottom line is, I fully expect them to pass.
And I'm glad you mentioned at the very end regarding the John Lewis Act. There's actually, I think, that, and there's one other act that's on the table where hopefully, for lack of a better term, if these two clear, and I want to say maybe the Lewis Act cleared over the weekend, I'm not quite sure, but if these both clear, then that national mandate is going to take priority over the state. So like you said, even
Yes.
with the possibility of these measures going through, the countermeasures are that they'll be out of compliance either with the judicial system or with what's going on nationally. And if that's the case, then you've got hopefully the way that we've seen early voting and things along those lines, they'll continue to happen. So
Yes.
even outside of what's going on with voting, which obviously is important, what's another, I know that every issue is important, but what's another critical issue that you're seeing in legislative session that you want your constituents to be aware of, let alone people in the state of Georgia to be aware of, that this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, but this is what you can do?
So what's going on at the Capitol is we have a governor and a leadership team, which is all Republicans, and they're Trump fans, and they're running the Capitol as if this was the Trump administration. For example, I'm sure no one knows this, but the House passed a bill. You know, we always talk about, you'll hear about 3 strikes and you're out laws. The House passed a bill that's essentially 2 strikes and you're out. And, you know, we opposed, we spoke against it, and they mocked us. They mocked us for speaking against that. We passed a bill in the House completely on party lines that we can never defund the police. I've never been a fan of that phrase, the wording, but they use that to pass a bill that says that we can never reduce the police force's budget by more than 5%. So in essence, they passed a bill to never defund the police. I never wanted to defund the police. I think reform is a better word for it. Different subject, but these are some of the things that happen. And when I said I was tired earlier, it wasn't because of today. It's because this Monday was crossover day, which means if we had a bill in the House, it had to cross over to the Senate by Monday. And if it didn't, it was dead. So Monday was a marathon day of hearing hundreds of not hundreds, but probably 100 bills. And we were there to almost midnight. It's just a long day. It's emotionally draining, and it's hard to get over, particularly having to watch some of the shenanigans that go on down there. You know, it has nothing to do, passing bills have nothing to do with if you have a good bill, if you have great ideas. It has to do with the party that you're in and who you suck up to. I mean, that's just the honest truth. If you are a Republican and you suck up to the speaker, you're going to pass everything you put your hands on. If you're a Democrat, nothing at all. Last year, not COVID year, but 2019, there was only one Democratic bill that made it to the governor's desk. It was mandatory recess for elementary school kids. He vetoed the one Democratic bill that made it to his desk. So we're talking about, you know, with Governor Deal, he was willing to negotiate. He knew that passing, you know, archaic laws is bad for business. It's bad for business. It's bad for the state. We can't get along with our neighbors if we're fighting over, you know, voter restriction laws. The heartbeat bill. Governor Deal would have never brought the heartbeat bill because he knew it was bad for business. And we're losing business because of the voter suppression bills. A lot of the businesses that we have here are saying that they don't want to be associated with a state that would do such a thing. So this is just, it's a different environment. Even my colleagues who have been there for a while are surprised at where we are today, because we made progress. Like, we've made progress in criminal justice reform under Nathan Deal. Under Kemp, we passed a 2 strikes and you're outlaw. We passed a law where you can't reduce the police's budget by less than 5%. And keep in mind, the police do a lot in mental health that they do not want to do. It would be a great thing if we can move some of those mental health duties to another division, department, whatever we can work out, which would mean moving money from their budget to maybe a mental health arm of something, either mental health department or something. But mental health shouldn't be a part of the police. But we can't do that now because we can't reduce their budget by more than 5%, and that's where the money is going right now for emergency mental health, for a good chunk of emergency mental health. So it's sad, and it's hard to watch on a daily basis. Thank God we're only there for 40 days.
So let me ask you this as we gradually get ready to wind down this segment. I'm glad you shared the battles that you and others are fighting, because quite frankly, I don't think the general public is as aware as they could be, which is what makes this part of our time so important. And given, for lack of a better term, the uphill battle, what would be a message that you want to deliver to your constituents and technically to everybody in the state in regards to, based on what's going on, what can you do to be a more proactive part of this process and have something that's a lot more sensible?
So I'm not to beat a dead horse, but we have to make voting a #1 priority, even if they try to make it more difficult for us. You know, when I was a kid, my parents didn't talk about voting. I think in other communities, it's not, are you going to vote? But what time are you going to vote? It's not an option. That has to be where we are in our communities. Because right now, I mean, the situation that Georgia is in, we're here because one side votes at a higher percentage than the other. And that is killing us. That is killing us. Everyone has to vote. Everyone has to vote, because right now, if you went downtown to protest the voter suppression laws, they don't care. They're not going to change their minds. They're just not going to do it. They have said, we have to do this for our base. They're not going to, nothing, calling, emailing, protest, it's not going to change their minds. The only thing that's going to change what is happening at the Capitol is if everyone votes, makes that a part of our culture. Not are we going to vote, but what day, what time, do you need a ride? That is the only way that we can continue making the progress that we've made in 2020, but at the local level. Because right now, since the Capitol it's a trifecta, we have this very little we can do at the local level. That means to give you an example, I had a bill that updated the mental health manual. We are referring to the mental health manual from 1981. Still has words like retardation. It's totally outdated. My bill only asked to change the version of the mental health manual to the updated version. That was it. They wouldn't let that pass. That costs no money. There's no controversy around it. But I'm here talking to you against them. I'll never get a bill passed until we vote and vote them out, or at least vote enough of them out to give us a seat at the table. Right now, we don't have one at all. We don't have one at all. So I think my advice would be pay attention, of course, and I'll give you a pass, because there are hundreds of bills that are introduced every year. No one, not even we, can really pay attention to. The way we kind of keep track of things is everyone takes care of their expertise, their area of expertise. So I look out for mental health bills and bills that have to do with foster care or adoption. And then the attorneys look out for the judicial bills. There are a lot of bills. So I can't even ask you to follow every single one. Pay attention, though, to what makes the news. Whatever you're passionate about, pay attention to that. But the bottom line is we have to vote the way we've been voting in the last year or two. We have to continue that. We have to build on that, and we cannot lose momentum when it comes to voting. That will kill any type of progress that we make, because we are steadfast against private prisons. But when you pass a 2 strikes and you're outlawed, that keeps your clients, the private prisons, in business. That doesn't have anything to do with people. That has to do with business. And we have to change that. And the only way we're going to do that is if we vote them out.
Well, I tell you what, Representative Hutchinson, we appreciate you taking time away from the session. You have been clearly putting in work and then some. So before we go to our final segment and before you get some rest, please get some rest. What are some of the best ways our viewers can stay connected with you?
Honestly, Facebook is the best way. And I'll tell you why. When Trump did the whole, the stop the steal thing, we got so many emails. My emails aren't even functional anymore. And when I'm telling you, I had several emails every minute of every day. It shut my emails down. So Facebook is actually the best way to reach me. You can email me. I have people trying to help me wade through all of this because we're still getting emails like that. It's difficult. But Facebook, email, honestly, phone calls is the worst because, particularly during the session, because it's hard to stop to take a phone call or return a phone call. So I would say either email or Facebook.
Okay, and we'll make sure to have that information available. So we're going to go to commercial break. Thank you so much for taking time. Get some rest, continued encouragement with the work that you are doing. Seriously.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time. So we're going to go to our last commercial break, and then we'll go ahead and do our quick recap and ride out into the sunset.
Doing good, but doing it greater. That's what Crave Community Solutions is all about. Whether it's education-based services, including ACT and SAT prep, sports coverage, political coverage, and more, we can help you make it happen. And now that you have an idea of how we make it happen, let's check out these pieces from the Ear Candy Experience and the author's mixtape.
This is the author, Andrew Snorton, the host of The Conversation Corner, airing every second and fourth Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Status Network, the live TV channel. We're so excited to have the Ear Candy Experience as our official music sponsor. So make sure to check out the show and make sure to check them out. And remember, let's have a conversation. How is it that something that looks so frail can be so beautiful and so powerful? That it's more than planting seeds. It is evoking that range of emotion that just about everybody needs. And I'm not talking about some tower of power. I'm talking about giving people their flowers. Now, we've heard this usually at the dawn of the day or when someone has finished climbing up the rough side of the mountain. You know what I'm talking about. The homegoing, the swaying, the recitals of how wonderful somebody is and the wonderful stories. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back to go ahead and close out. We definitely have had a very engaging show. I want to thank all of our guests for taking time out to go ahead and join us tonight. So real quick, there's basically two real quick things we wanted to make sure we had squared away before we close out. If we can get that flyer up right quick, we are very excited, number one, that the Atlanta Braves are throwing their support behind the Ralph Garr, Bill Lucas HBCU Classic. That'll be taking place this weekend, March 12th through 14th at Coolray Field, featuring Grambling State, and of course I know some of those FAMU, y'all know the rest. Florida A&M is going to be there. We're going to be there providing coverage and recaps on March 12th and March 13th. And real quick, Ralph Garr, Bill Lucas, HBCU Products, Garr, former Atlanta Brave. So it's great to see this type of momentum coming to our area. And as we get ready to close out real quickly, our next broadcast will be 2 weeks from now, March 24th. It's definitely going to have a great baseball theme, so check it out. And as we ride out into the sunset, I've got to give shouts to two extraordinary people at my alma mater, Wake Forest University. So shouts to Sean and Morgan. We're going to close out with this motivational and inspirational rendition. So take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.